Somebody gave me some great advice, and somebody that I really admire, one of my mentors, and she had said, she's like, she said, you don't do crowd work. I said, why? And she goes, because you'll just coast on it. And
Force you into
she,
work.
yeah, she goes, it'll hurt your writing. Cause she had seen me and like, she knew me and she was like, she's like, don't do it because like that could have been, which by the way, again, I have friends that do it, make a great living at it,
Mhm.
but for what I was trying to do, and I talked to her about it. I go, no, I want to be a like this kind of comedian. Not that they're saying like write, but I like want to write and get better at that. And she had seen me, and she was like, yeah, don't do crowd work.
Please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and I appreciate it. This week on Talk About Las Vegas, we're talking comedy, characters, and chameleon level impressions with Jonathan Kite, best known as the unforgettable Oleg from Two Broke Girls. From Netflix and CBS hits to more than 250 celebrity impressions, plus his own podcast, Kite Club, Jonathan joins us to talk stand-up, showbiz, and his impressions of impressions, or something like that. He'll be performing at Chinita's venue in Henderson on February 19th at 7 p.m. And for ticket information, go to hooked-entertainment. That's hooked-entertainment.com. For everything about Jonathan, go to jonathankitecomedy.com. You can follow him on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, everything under the entire social media world. And Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. I should point out that I was surprised to find out you're from Skokie.
Skokie, Illinois, born and raised, Evanston
Wow.
Hospital. Yeah.
What got you involved in theater, performing, comedy, etc.? How did that start for you? At what age?
My father probably showed me, classic films like Marx Brothers, things like that when I was really little. People who are familiar with Chicago's theater scene, it's really amazing. And so there were all these shows that would come in through town. So my mother would take my brother and I to the theater, and my father would show us old classic black and white films. And so I thought, probably when I was a kid, the idea that people could do this for a living was just, it sort of blew my mind. And that people would get paid the same currency, probably more than or less than other jobs, but the fact that it wasn't, just a hobby for these people. So at a very early age, I was very interested in it, and I did theater all growing up, and then I went to college. I went to the University of Illinois at Champaign to do theater, and then I moved out to Los Angeles right after.
When you first came out, did you figure you're going to conquer the town? You were going to do acting, impressions, comedy, etc. What was your game plan, or was there a game plan when you first moved out?
You know what I want to? There's a guy who maybe your listeners are familiar with because he played Vegas a lot. I don't know. A guy who used to open for Tom Jones in Vegas. His name was Max Alexander,
Yes,
and
right. A fairly rotund guy.
rotund guy, RIP. Was a mentor of mine, and what had happened was some buddies of mine. We were getting ready to move out here, and some friends of mine went to I don't know see Tom Jones or something. And Max came outside, and my buddy was smoking a cigarette, and he befriended them with no strings attached, and they said, "Listen, we're going to be moving to LA with our buddy, me, and we would, he said, well, who do you know out there?" We said, "We don't know anybody," and he really was instrumental in helping us, find an acting class, a place to live, for God's sakes, and I'd always planned on being an actor first and foremost, but I admired stand-up comedians my entire life. And then, I dabbled in it a little bit, but I was more of an improv guy because I felt like it was better with my schedule. If you're improv, there are no lines, so you can pick up at any time. Whereas comedy, stand-up, whatever people think of it now, that it's all crowd work, or obviously people have varying opinions. It takes a lot of time to get good and to give the audience something, at least in my estimation, that I was proud of. And I didn't really have that time to give because I was auditioning and working as an actor. And then when I got a TV show and we had been picked up for a second season, we couldn't accept jobs this summer in between season one and two. And I'd always remember, Max Alexander obviously was a very fine, very successful stand-up, and I had a lot of friends in the business that were stand-ups. And I remember I was at the Improv one night on Melrose with a buddy that I had done a pilot with that wound up getting the series a couple years prior, and then another dear friend of mine, and they're both stand-ups, and they said, "You have time off. You can do this now. You have the time. Why not just try it?" And so I just decided to jump into it, started doing open mics, and was on the road within 3 months.
That's an amazing story that you could do that. In fact, because you hear stories of comedians and comics who tried to launch a career in comedy. I don't know if it's the breaks, the talent, the combination of it.
Well, I think it was dumb luck because I don't know that I was any good. I mean, maybe your listeners or your viewers can say that I saw him early on and he stunk, but I thought it was I was happy for what it was. I mean, I can definitely go back and see, I did all impressions when I first started, and that was easier for me because I had done a sketch show for the Fox network, like sort of a new and living color that got, excuse me, we ran for 1 year. And so we auditioned with characters and impressions, which I had not really done, characters certainly my whole life and improv and whatnot, but I was just able to transfer that over. And so I think that was a little different. It was stand up. I was trying to tell jokes, but it certainly isn't, it's similar to what I do now, but it was different. It was challenging, but it was exciting. I had a good time.
How do you balance your act in the sense of because you're known for impressions and comedy in general, how do you balance your act between, I'll use the term jokes versus impressions or comedic impressions, etc. In
Yeah,
other
I mean,
words, is there a balance to it?
beginning I did all impressions. And then for my mid, for probably a year, I don't want to say, I don't know what the year, but like after a while, I stopped doing impressions and I was just doing straight jokes. And then people who had seen me do TV shows or, the thing is they work as magic tricks. So when you go on a show, like, you do the Today Show or something, that's what they want to see. Even though you're there promoting a television show that you're on air, they'd love to see you do Obama. And so I stopped doing impressions just because I sort of was doing just other jokes. And then people would come to the show and they'd say, "Oh, I saw you on the whatever show and you didn't do impressions this time." And I said, "Oh, yeah, I don't really do that anymore." And I realized that if I was going to have a career in this, I wanted to train my audience to like what I was doing, not come to know me as a guy that does impressions. And so now, I mean, there are certainly impressions that I do in the act, but it is a small percentage, maybe 10%, maybe 20% or something like that. But it's not. It's stories, it's my opinions on things. And if the impression works and it's appropriate and it will help the joke, then I definitely do it. But just because I wanted to be able to go anywhere with, if something was interesting to me, I wanted to be able to discuss it without fear of, oh, will I be able to connect to the audience or will they understand it because I'm not doing Trump doing, you know what I mean? And so I had to make that decision early on. It was a hit. I don't, I won't lie to you. It was not nearly as dynamic and it took me a while to build in it, but I think I had enough people and I was lucky because I had a fan base from a TV show. So people would come out and see me. And as long as I talked a little bit about the show and I stayed after and took photos, people seemed happy. So I appreciate my fans for being with me as I made that transition. But, now I think it's so much better for everybody. Because it's like if a guy, everybody's famous today, right? So it's like if a guy's not in the news and you're doing an impression of him, it's not it's not in the front of their brain. So I don't want to be that guy who's like, and by the way, there's plenty of amazing people that already do this. So kudos to them for doing that. But if they're doing it, I don't need to be like, wouldn't it be crazy if Jack Nicholson did it? Like, by the way, that's fine. Again, I like those people, but that's not. I think to myself, it's just it makes it for me, for my brain and my, whatever I'm doing out there. It's not as that's just not where I want to put my time and energy. But again, I love, Rich Little, all those guys growing up. I just was
Abortion would be another
Greg
one.
Gorshin. I was literally going to say Gorshin is the best. I mean, I love his Kirk Douglas and I mean, those guys are Cagney. Like I grew up watching certainly Jim Carrey, Robin Williams, but if I think about those guys, Pablo Francisco, Jamie Foxx, these are the guys. These are like they're not their substance is so strong and deep that it's like if you told, Jamie Foxx, just came out with a special, he had like, 10 impressions that were like 4 seconds each. It was an hour plus of material. And you just think like to me, not like you're able to connect because that's the thing is if you don't know who, and I love Seth Rogen, I do a Seth Rogen impression. If you don't know who it is in the audience, and he's obviously very famous, then maybe you're not able to connect as much, which is okay because you're not going to connect with everything. But if I'm doing like a 5 minute bit about a guy pretending to buy coffee or something and you don't know who that is, then you're out for 5 minutes.
You've carefully thought that out. It's obvious how to approach it. And also, too, you recognize that you have to have a little bit of it. And I obviously alluded to it in my opening of you when we started, but it is similar to, for example, performers, particularly musicians or singers that have hits. And if they don't do their hits, then
Yeah.
you forget the audience then gets angry because they're doing original material, but not the hits that they're known for.
Yeah.
But it's a way of trying to think of the word. It's kind of skewing it so that you can do both. So you always leave a little bit of in your case, impressions, quote unquote, hits. You put a little bit of it in there, but you're really focusing on the new material. And that takes discipline to do, and that takes a likability factor, I think, too, for your audience. They know of you from various performances. Now they're
Yeah.
coming to see you. You give them a little taste of impressions, but then you do your other comedy, which is what you've worked on, and you make that connection. That's a long-winded explanation of what you just said, but I'm impressed by the discipline it takes to do that, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, thank you. I mean, I listen for those who've seen me. I mean, I still, I still bomb. I'm not bomb, but like jokes don't work. But that's the thing is that
Happens.
it happens. But also, we're in a process. That's a gym for us. Like I mean, obviously, when I come to the show, I probably only do a few new things that I've been working on when I come to Henderson. But when you do your road act, like I'll be in New York. I don't know when this is going to air, but I'll be in Buffalo, New York the week before. And I don't bring it up to promote it, just to say like I'm going to be working, that whole weekend on material. Like you, so when you come to see me in a one nighter like this, and I love shout out to Kevin, obviously, and Matt, who are amazing. I've worked with them in we do Alaska, but Kevin's out of Nevada, and Matt, these are amazing guys. I mean, when you do a one nighter like that, you're coming out, you're bringing the hits, but where do you work on that? So it's nice about that comedy really gives you an opportunity to work to have everything happen in a due time. So like it'll give you the opportunity to work on the new stuff when you need to. Sometimes I'll do it at the very end if I'm like, we have time. Let me try some of these new jokes out on you. People love to hear that. They love to hear the new stuff that you're working on, which is, really kind if you have a good audience who's there to just have to have fun. But it certainly is always a process, and you just hope that it works. And just because it worked before, this isn't like plumbing where we're dealing with the same holes and hoses. It's
Correct.
like it's
Right.
like there's a new idea that comes up with, I don't know, Trump. I'm just saying, like a guy who everybody knows. Then you go, how do I make that funny? And then it has a shelf life, so you have to work on it very quickly. So it's nice.
But let's point out again, it's Chinita's venue in Henderson on February 19th at
Yes.
7 p.m. for
I love
Jonathan
Vegas. I
Kite.
love Henderson. Spend a lot of time there. My best friend's father's from there. By the way, Henderson, Nevada, I love, and I probably have spent more time in Henderson, Nevada than I have in Las Vegas because when I was growing up and we had no money, my buddy and I would go there and stay with his father,
In
who's
Henderson,
there.
in
He's
Las
going to come to the show with Green Valley Ranch. Shout out.
Vegas.
I love Henderson. I've spent a lot of time there. It's great, great people. And I'm really excited to perform at the venue. And I love these guys. I know Kevin and Matt always put together a great show. So I'm excited to be there.
Have you performed in Las Vegas before?
I have. Yes. It's very interesting. There are, I'm going to be very tactful how I say this.
Sure.
I think the club scene is amazing. But I think that there are some clubs not the clubs themselves. Every club I've played in, to be honest with you, and I haven't played them all, I've had a fantastic time. I like the ones where the audience knows that they're coming to see a comedy show instead of just taking a break from the games.
Right.
Because when I first started, and this isn't even there anymore, there was a club at a casino. The casino's not even there anymore. And I remember being like, I asked the people on the lineup, oh, this is exciting. And they're like, yeah, most people don't know that there's a comedy show. And I looked out and I'm telling you, like, it looked like a Civil War photo. I was just like, these people were literally resting their bunions. They had no idea that we were going to be talking at them about whatever. And my God, it was like we were doing them a disservice. It was our job was to like they were not turn. I mean, and very funny comics, by the way. One of my buddies who I won't name him, he was the main guy. This is a huge star who's on TV right now on a very big show. And I remember we were laughing our heads off backstage because I did a guest spot. I knew him and I was like, hey, I'm trying to I want to play all the clubs in one night. So I like did a round robin when I first moved out. And my goodness, those people were waiting for a bus that never came.
But isn't that a way, isn't that a great way to exercise your or really develop your chops by dealing with an audience that is
Oh
brain?
yeah. Well, you know what it is that the thing is it's not a bad thing. I feel like that it had pushed me not even to do crowd work. I was asking them, what do you know? Like I would say, do you know this? And then they'd be like, no. And they'd be like, all right, moving on. And so that became like a fun bit that we were doing. I mean, I always had fun. I have played The Cellar probably most recently, which I love. That was such a good club. Yeah, I mean, I've had very, very good experiences. And I had a lot of fun. And the thing I'll tell you about the Cellar is right. Like I don't know if you've been there. You can tell those people they want to be there. They have a good reputation in New York. It's a fantastic club that I've played. It's a great audience. They know it's not like should we go do this or that? It's like a destination
Oh
for
yeah. Well, you need a map and a compass to get once you get into the Rio to find the Comedy Cellar. But
you absolutely, dude. It's like Nicolas Cage looking for the Declaration of Independence. I and it was, and you know what, we got there and it was, but I like that. But something like, so I mean, listen, Vegas is changing. It does such a good job at those theaters, that where a lot of comedians go. So I don't know what the club scene is like. I have friends my friend is the booker over at Brad Garrett's.
Mhm.
I know him for a long time, who used to book Zanies, where I'm from in Chicago, the Rosemont Room, and Cindy. And so I know there's great people, like, and there's Jimmy Kimmel. There's newer stuff that's going on. And I think that's really exciting. Obviously, Vegas in that area, Henderson, it's a very fast growing, very, well to do. I mean, they're building movie studios out there. So it's like, it's great place to be right now.
Well, they haven't approved it yet, the movie studio, but they're looking.
I think they probably will, in my estimation.
Yeah,
I think they will. I think they
there's
will.
another advantage to performing where you're performing in Henderson, and that is as the strip gets more and more congested, and especially for locals, it's a lot easier to go to Henderson than it is to go and drive, park, walk to get to a casino on the strip to see somebody. So
I
in that
agree.
sense, there's a positive. Well, when you're balancing it out with your TV work and your live work and now you're traveling all over and performing.
Yeah.
Is there, it's obviously a different discipline. When you're dealing with a situation comedy as you did, there's rehearsals, there's rewrites, there's all kinds of technical things going on, etc. When you're doing your live performance, it's just you up there. It's your one. It's right there. You're on the stage. It's just you. So clearly it's a different, not genre. I'm trying to think of the word. It's a different discipline. It's a different
It's just
skill.
different. It's different gears. It's a different muscle set. And
Right.
you got to, the thing is, you try to get up as much in town as you can, but you're bouncing back and forth. And um, it's one of those things where, when I go a place, I mean, I'm always writing, I have notes folder in my phone where if something gets, I go, maybe there's something there, but it's one of those things where I like it because you're usually saying someone else's words in a TV show or a movie. And I mean, they'll sometimes they'll ask you like, how would you say this, or do you have any, alts or punch up or whatever, like, whatever. It's very nice when that happens, but mostly it doesn't. And then so it sort of scratches the itch. It's like two sides, same coin, right? So that it's me doing it, but me deciding what I'm going to talk about, and then me trying to figure out a character. So I think it's never a dull moment.
It's also, I think, that you have a different audience and they're reacting to you each time you perform, as
Mhm.
opposed to a studio audience that's watching you in a three-camera shoot if there's a live audience, or even if there's no audience, you've got the crew watching you. So it's a different dynamic than when you're on stage in a comedy club performing in an intimate setting.
Absolutely.
In that sense. How do you set your discipline up for writing? I mean, it's clear you're disciplined because we've been talking about that. But do you have a set time that you are writing material, or is it that, as you said, you took notes in your phone when something comes to you? But do you have like an hour somewhere in the day where you sit down and you work on it and you just say, okay, I've got this idea. Now it's a joke. I'm gonna polish it even more. It's not quite where I need it to be yet.
Well, it's funny. I'm a writer as well, and I'm working. I have a writing job right now that I'm trying to finish this film, and so and I write like so. I would like to say that I sit and devote an hour every day to stand up, but I think for me, like I do a TikTok series, a social media series where I do Anthony Bourdain and I do David Attenborough, and I used to do Sam Elliott, but I've swapped it out. But those I write, like people, somebody commented the other day that I was just improvising this, and I'm going, holy hell, wish I did. I mean, but they take they take time. And I probably devote more, not because I don't, of course I care about stand-up, but I think that for me, what I realize is I come up with a funny idea. I mean, an idea that I think is funny.
Mhm.
And then when I'm out or when I'm with friends, I will read them the idea and say, or I'll text somebody and say, is there something in this? What do you think? The way that people do back and forth. And then when I see like I'm going to my co-star Garrett Morris, the sweetest man, your fans might know him as he was on the original cast of Saturday Night Live.
Live, right.
And yeah, of course, his birthday. So we're going out tonight. I know that there's comedians there, and we're just gonna be bouncing ideas and going, what do you think about this? What is this working? Like whatever, whatever. And so for me, when I'm on stage, when I do these smaller sets, I'll try to work it out organically in the moment because I realize with my stand-up, which isn't a problem, weirdly enough, or it's not the same issue that I have with writing scripts and writing social media videos. When I write it out for stand-up, it's overwritten. It's like too much. So
Mhm.
I'll write down every idea that I have about it, and then I will try to force my mind in the moment to get to those points in an organic way. Because when you're sitting here on your phone or computer or writing it down, you can write a paragraph. But when you're on stage, you're gauging the audience's interest and if they're getting it. And so I know what the points are. I know the things I have to hit and the punchlines, but I'm like trying to explain something to them. So how do I do that in an organic, natural way?
Yeah, that makes sense. When you're working on material and you start to process it and you get up on stage and you're performing, do you ever get to a point where someone shouts out from the audience something that's not a better punchline than you had, but something that gives you an idea for another punchline just because of an audience reaction? Does that ever happen?
Sometimes, but people don't really. I mean, I don't do a lot of crowd work. That's the other thing is like, people are great. I mean, do that. And I used to do it a lot, but then I thought it wasn't. Somebody gave me some great advice, and somebody that I really admire, one of my mentors, and she had said, she's like, she said, you don't do crowd work. I said, why? And she goes, because you'll just coast on it. And
She's forcing you to work.
yeah, it'll hurt your writing because she had seen me and like she knew me and she was like, she's like, don't do it because like that could have been. Which, by the way, again, I have friends that do it, make a great living at it,
Mhm.
but for what I was trying to do. And I talked to her about it. I go, no, I want to be like this kind of comedian. Not that there's anything like right, but I like want to write and get better at that. And she, she had seen me and she was like, yeah, don't do crowd work.
Tell us about the Kite Club.
So that it's funny enough, I had a podcast, we took a break and I think we're going to get it back going. I literally had a conversation about this maybe a week ago. And so I'm trying to figure out. So what had happened was I was on the road doing stand up and I was filming and I had writing jobs. And it was one of those things where I didn't have the time. And I didn't want to I wanted people, we had such great fans and anybody who listened and supported, God bless you. Thank you so much. I felt guilty because I just felt like it's not consistent. It was rushed and it didn't feel like my best self. But it was a podcast with me, and it would be one of my two great friends who both opened for me on the road. And we would literally just talk about like sort of, I mean, I like it was more to like what was going on with my week because I was always somewhere and and my buddies have their own lives going on. And I think it was, we would answer people's questions and sort of get to know. And then I started doing TikTok lives, which is a more immediate way to do that.
Mhm.
It's not that I prefer TikTok. I mean, it's social media is a necessary evil, but it was the delay would come out. And so the TikTok, unfortunately, for the moment, TikTok Live has replaced that because it's like if I want to talk or if I have time, whereas like if I didn't have time, we would keep moving it and then we didn't have an episode that would drop and it would suck.
And
And so,
given everything that you're doing, you need some time for sleep.
yeah, I mean, I was telling you right before, I mean, I was up really late last night working and then I had two calls this morning before I grew up. But that's the nature, right? You want to be busy and
Yeah.
there's no,
Yeah, it's
I
either feast or famine, and you want the feast.
My face takes about 25 hours to wake up.
So, just one last thing before I let you go. Looking at, and you mentioned some of the people that influenced you. Is there one person other than Max, for example, that influenced you, perhaps growing up, that you knew for sure this is the path you wanted to take, meaning comedy, writing, performing, etc.?
Yeah, there was a group of guys actually that I hold near and dear in my brain as sort of like that they really helped me in life. When I was growing up in Illinois, I didn't feel alone. I think I had a lot of friends, my family's great, but I did feel emotionally isolated in a way that I thought there aren't people out there like me. And with the internet, you realize there's a million people like you, a billion people. But back then, I didn't have a low self-esteem, but I thought, wow, I really don't know people that are like me. And then when I was growing up, I would watch TV and film. And I remember seeing people on there, Michael Keaton, John Lithgow, who I've had the pleasure of meeting, of hanging with a couple of times, Jim Carrey, Jamie Foxx, who has become one of my closest friends. Pablo Francisco, we're actually working on a bit to go on the road together and do a theater tour. Those guys, men like that, and when there are women too, it's not just that, but specifically, I think of there were a few people, Robin Williams, that really, when I saw them, I felt less alone in the world. And I remember thinking, like, these guys are really not that I am as good as them, but I feel similar. Like I can recognize some of myself in them. And so I think that, getting to work with Jamie for so long and just befriending, and I was with him last night, and we're working on some things. That's why it was anyway. But it's just like really we can relate, and I think having been with Pablo and loving Pablo and being on the road with him and talking to him and really collaborating, it's like it's been amazing. And Max Alexander certainly sort of being that sort of his best friend was Jerry Lewis, another guy was Jerry Lewis, so he was able to share a lot of stories and experiences and sort of his interactions, and I thought these were very comforting stories to hear, and very cool stories and very exciting. But there was also something that was like, sort of like a nice like pat on the shoulder, or like a hug. And I remember feeling like this is my tribe, and to know and to have been lucky enough to connect with these people that I hold in high esteem and just really value and respect, and to have worked with them. It's just nice because it feels like I'm right where I belong and I should be.
That's a great way to leave it. My guest has been Jonathan Kite. He's performing at Chinita's venue in Henderson on February 19th at 7 p.m. And for ticket information, go to hooked-entertainment.com. That's hooked-entertainment.com. For everything about Jonathan, go to jonathankitecomedy.com, and you can follow him on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and the rest of the social media world. Jonathan, thanks so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
See you next time.